I guess, how do we go about this conversation with clients then? Because, when people, I think, come to a financial advisor, I always say this to clients as well. We're going to help you figure out what to do with your money, how to invest, get better with cash flow, how to structure things more efficiently, get more optimized around your tax structures, how to protect everything. Like, there's all of these financial areas that we cover off, but then all of these things that we're talking about, how do you frame that, and how do you start approaching that with clients that you find in these various categories?
I mean, it's just conversations, and you don't necessarily get the answer, in 1 or 2 meetings. For example, if someone's working a job they hate and they're nowhere near being able to afford to retire, sometimes the thought doesn't even enter their mind to make a major change. Like quit the job, find a new job, move cities, whatever. Sometimes they're stretched too thin with a massive mortgage, or they could just downsize, right? Move to a cheaper home and then free up that pressure of having to earn as much money as you can. So sometimes it's just planting the seed in their mind that you have some choice here. Like if you're unhappy, do something about it. And sometimes they just need that nudge to make a difficult decision.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Winners Playbook. I'm Josh, joined with Billy as usual, and today we're going to be getting into something a little different. We talk a lot about building wealth in this show, but what actually happens when you get there? Specifically, what makes a good retirement? Because here's the thing, the research is showing that having a big super balance is not enough on its own. In fact, if money is all you focus on, you might actually end up miserable. So we've got a lot to unpack today, but before we get into it, Billy, what's new in your life, mate?
Yes, Josh. Well, I've been warned about this for years, but I'm entering that part of parenting where your kids have to do out of school activities.
Right.
So that's seriously, I think I sort of managed to delay it a little bit. We managed to stay out of the Saturday morning sports and swimming.
Yeah.
But now it's all happening. So my 7-year-old is in a basketball team, he's doing training. And then him and the younger one are both doing a preschool basketball thing as well. So there's 3 mornings a week of basketballs coming out of nowhere. Youngest child, 5-year-old, is doing Auskick starting on Saturday.
Nice.
Which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Just hanging around the oval for an hour or 2.
Yeah.
And, up until now, they're actually really into the skate park. So it's all changing. But yeah, that's what's going on for me.
Yeah, so you're turning into one of those dads that's going to be running after the kids all weekend and sports, and there's obviously a few of the other staff here that I see them they're just running around like crazy between sports, swimming, instruments, musical instruments, sport, you name it. I guess I'm nowhere even near that position at this point in time, but I am thinking about it. That's actually part of why I got back into my martial arts, because it's something that I want Leon to get into. So I haven't got back into all the boxing and things that I was doing. So I'm kind of over the days of getting punched in the face. I did enough of that when I was younger. So I've gone for something a little bit less impactful on the body, but still as dangerous in its own right, like jiu-jitsu, but there's no punching to the face, which is good, because I need to keep my looks and my brain in good. So I don't know if my looks are any good, mind you, but I got to keep my brain in sharp shape. So I've been doing that now. I think we'll be approaching about a year or so. I'm getting pretty close to the point where I'll grade, which is where you basically go up a level. And I think when Leon reaches about 3, they can start the minute, but they do it down in such a worded, playful version. So when I tell some people about it, they're like, "What do you mean? You have your kid doing that?" It's it's the most playful, fun thing that they're doing, but it's starting to teach them some of the, the school skills and, how to protect themselves. And I put a lot of my own sort of discipline to martial arts. So I want to get him involved as soon as I possibly can, but at the same time, want to make sure that I can keep up with him when he's older as well. So that's what I'm trying to keep It
was a sad and also proud day when he beats the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Because we had some false starts on sporting activities.
Yeah.
My eldest, he did break dancing.
Oh, yeah.
He really wanted to do.
Yeah.
After about 3 weeks, he's like, "This is boring. I don't want to do it." And he also did martial arts for a few months. Yeah. And then he was just, the discipline thing was not working for him. I was just running around and silly, and you can't force them to go, because then they'll just hate it. So we ended up trying quite a few things. We sort of tried and failed. Yeah. Now he's 7, so I think hopefully he'll be able to stick to a few things. But
it's tricky. I look at it when I was younger. I did so many different things when I was a kid, but I only kind of locked in on martial arts when I was about 12. So I guess I was starting to mature a little bit. But, before that, did footy, I did cricket, I did soccer, I was into motorbikes. I was kind of like in everything that you can imagine, and then finally locked in on something. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking about the future and staying ahead of the game. But maybe it will be a proud day when Leon can take me down and hold me down for a little bit.
I see that.
Yeah, He's got some work to be done. But yeah, so what are we going to be talking about today? So there's a book out of the University of Sydney that breaks retirees into 4 distinct types. And once we walk you through them, you'll probably know exactly which one you are heading to. So we're going to get into that, Billy. So can you start by maybe breaking down those 4 sort of archetypes of a retiree and what this article or study was uncovering? And then let's dive into some of that and what we see with our clients.
Yeah, so when I read this, it really resonated with me because we do plenty of retirement, like all financial advisors pretty much do retirement planning as one of the things I do. And I immediately started thinking about different clients in these categories. So we've got 4 categories. The stayer is the first one. So this is someone who's deeply connected to their old career and they'll often just keep working. Like they'll pretty much never fully retire until they're 80 and beyond. So it might be like a doctor who's still consulting, an academic who just hangs around, never stops researching, things like that. The upside of that is they still have that social connection through work.
Yep.
And of course the financial upside because they're still bringing in income.
Yep.
That's the stayer. The risk, of course, is if that work doesn't continue, they can't do it or they can't find work or whatever, then they might be a bit stuck mentally. That's the stayer. Next one is the leaver. And I've spoken to a lot of these in my work because sometimes it's why someone goes to see an advisor. They don't like work. When can I stop?
Yeah.
The leaver is someone who just is done with work. They just want to stop. They want a clean break. They're relieved to be done with working. Of course, the key thing is that they then find purpose and have other things to do beyond that to fill their time. The ones who do that well are quite happy. The ones who don't do it well obviously struggle. The blender is the next one. This is the sweet spot according to the research. So they keep their foot in their old world of work, but they're also actively building new hobbies, new relationships and interests.
Yep.
So it might be part-time work, but then playing golf and doing other things. That's the sweet spot. Last one is the disengaged. So no connection to their old career, but also no new interests. This is the high-risk group, right, at risk of isolation and depression and so on. And it says, interestingly, in the article, they couldn't find anyone who was willing to be interviewed in that category. But when the authors of the book went on radio and spoke about it, lots of phone calls came in, usually from guys, saying, yep, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
So it's a stayer, the leaver, the blender, and the disengaged.
Yep. So we want to be a blender, and we'll get into how that actually works and break it down a bit more. So what do you see amongst your client base? Like, which one are you encountering the most?
Yeah, so definitely all of these ones. A lot of leavers, a lot of people they're usually late 50s, in their 60s, and they're done with, they've usually been in the same job for a long time and they're just absolutely done with it. They're just eyeing off that retirement date. So the leaver is common. The stayer is probably less common because some people, they just keep working. They don't feel like they're not under financial stress because they're happy to keep just earning an income forever. So I probably don't see that as often. Yeah. Definitely got blenders who have found the sweet spot. And I'll tell you, I was saying before this, the disengaged, right? So not connected to their work and also no new interests. I've got a client who was working in a factory for years. He wanted to retire because he hated working, but he also didn't have a very good relationship with his wife, and she wouldn't let him retire. Yeah, in those words. Then it's actually quite a sad story. His wife suddenly passed away, and then he immediately retired. And then he seemed happy, which is weird, after a bit of a grieving period, which didn't seem to last very long. He seemed happy, and then he sort of seemed like he was in a bit of a rut because he just had nothing. Yeah. Like I remember him telling us his treat, the only like extra spending he does was a KO subscription and fish and chips once a week. Yeah. That was it. That was his extracurricular activities. So that, I don't know if that's a different category or if that's in the disengaged.
Yeah, trying to find meaning and purpose in that situation's that's tough.
Yeah, if you've worked for so long and you just literally don't spend your time doing anything else. Yeah. And you don't like working, then you can find yourself in a pretty tough tough mental space, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, that's
you. What do you say?
Yeah, I was thinking, so I think stayers I'd probably put more to maybe business owners. I would see maybe there'll be a bit more in that category of business owners where they've really tied a lot of their sort of purpose and value to their business. You know, they enjoy it and they just kind of like never detach in a way. And I've seen some clients that just will work forever and for whatever reason, not necessarily just to accumulate more, but just they don't know anything else. Like particularly if they maybe started the business themselves. I've spoken to some clients lately that, you know, run some big businesses, and their father, say, you know, came from Europe 50, 60 years ago and migrated over to Australia, and then the kids have come in and are now looking after the business. The dad's in the 80s, but still works, like just doing deals, and like doesn't seem like he's ever going to slow down. And but the kids, it's interesting. I see a lot of kids in that situation. Well, I'm saying kids like they're in their 50s or approaching their 60s, but they're very much of the belief that, you know, they don't want to be like that, and they do want to, you know, detach. But I guess that's the whole point of like what we're talking about, is it's quite difficult to do that, particularly when you've been successful in a career or in a business, and, you know, you sort of tie a lot of your value in your life to that. And, you know, I suppose you think about how much of your life is spent working, you know, it's like a third of your life for the average person. So what you do post work, I think, is incredibly important. And I think that's probably the biggest struggle everyone has, is to try and find, you know, what is that next thing, or where do you get that satisfaction? Because one thing I see the most, and this is even looking at like family members that are approaching retirement, and they're, you know, I won't name people because they might listen, but they're thinking of, you know, they're going to get to retirement and like, I just want to kick my feet up. I just want to sit at the beach. I don't want to think about anything. I think that's good in reality. And I think, you know, I don't think it's personally good. I think that's what most people think is an ideal retirement, is you work all of your life, you get to the point, and then you're just going to relax and switch off and never give a shit kind of about anything. I think there's some people that can actually pull that off. Like, I think there is definitely some people, and I have clients like that are just retired. They don't really do anything now at this point in time, and I don't know what fills their day sometimes, but they play a little bit of golf. They do a little few things here and there. But I suppose grandkids starts coming into it as well.
That's what I was about to say. Grandkids are a big factor.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of clients I've got say they'll retire once their children have children.
Yeah.
And hopefully they do, because otherwise that's what they've thought about. Like, that's where I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to retire and spend time with grandkids, which isn't a bad plan.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of points here. So, like, you know, I do talk about this a lot with clients, and that I think kind of what I was alluding to before. I think the way people think about retirement is kind of wrong, you know, not necessarily just in Australia, but around the world in a whole. But I think it's kind of how the system's been built. Like, everything's kind of built around, you get to 60, you can access super, you get to 67, you can get the age pension. So obviously the system is built around that. But like so many clients, I just even had a couple of clients going to be working with moving forward to come on board. And like they don't want to like have that traditional retirement of work all of your life and, you know, bust your guts, have a little bit of enjoyment along the way, and then you get to 60, and then you're supposed to enjoy it when you're probably not at your physical peak. But I think that's, I think about that quite often around that traditional retirement and how that's kind of been sold to everyone, which, you know, you could probably go deeper into that. But what do you think about that sort of traditional retirement and you know, the golden years of being in your 60s? Because I know the thought of that being when you enjoy your life the most, when like there's this massive gap of like 40 years from 20 to 60 where, what does that mean? Like, you're not necessarily enjoying it, or you're in a grind, or you got to wait till you're 60, which I think a lot of people think about. Like, they don't know anything better, because that's kind of what's the narrative in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that was our parents and their parents' generations in Australia. Yeah. That's the idea. Yeah. But it's like the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday work week. Like, that's only been around for a period of time. That's not all through history.
Yeah.
And it used to be, like, when you had that 9 to 5 work week, it was usually a single income household, and usually the guy's working Monday to Friday, and they retire at 60, which in today's terms is relatively young. Like, most people actually can't afford to fully retire at 60 anymore. Yeah. So it is an outdated concept, I think. The other factor is, if you've got, these days, most households, you've got both members of the couple working, often full-time and with kids. It is such a grind through your 40s right? Young kids, both working, sometimes unwell parents you got to deal with. That is such a grind.
Yeah.
You come out the other side of that, you almost certainly can't afford to fully retire for most people. So you'd want to hope that you've got some work-life balance or some hobbies or something well before you get to 60.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that grind it's way too long. Right?
Yeah.
It's a bigger chunk of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you gotta really find fulfillment in the journey, not necessarily the destination.
You've got to try and enjoy raising your kids if you have kids. And then once the kids don't want to spend heaps of time with you anymore, like they're teenagers or whatever, then you need to find enjoyment in your life. Otherwise, it's going to be a long period of time, just hanging out for 65 years old.
Couldn't think of anything worse.
And so I think if you have children and they sort of get a bit older, if you hate your work at that point, you should consider making a major change. Because otherwise you're looking down the barrel of 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, no, I think that's tricky. I've actually seen some people as of late who are, say in their late 50s or early 60s, and they're like, look, still want to push it out to say I'm 67 or 65, and they like totally just don't enjoy what they do right now. But I've seen some scenarios. I'm thinking of one person who was in a trade and they're early 60s and can't necessarily retire right now, so they have to be working. But one's been made redundant, is really finding it tough to get work. Like, got all this immense amount of experience, but no one wants to employ him. And then I know another person I'm thinking of who is pretty much just hanging on to their job. Like, they've got a cruisy gig, do a bit of work from home and things, but just ticking the boxes to get through to their 67. And then it is completely done at this point in time, because knowing if he basically lost his job, he wouldn't be able to, get any sort of employment. So it's a tricky little balance. But I guess how do we go about this conversation with clients then? Because, when people, I think, come to a financial advisor, I always say this to clients as well. We're going to help you figure out what to do with your money, how to invest, get better with cash flow, how to structure things more efficiently, get more optimized around your tax structures, how to protect everything. Like, there's all of these financial areas that we cover off, but then all of these things that we're talking about, none of that actually goes into like a financial plan. Like, all of these things about like, where do you find your value or where your passion is, and where are you going to spend time post retirement? Like, that's not financial advice traditional, if you get what I mean. And so I think sometimes people don't realize that's actually what a good advisor will help you with, is sort of find what that is for you in your life, which is not a product. It's not a financial recommendation of invest in this or invest in that. It's a totally different conversation. So how do you frame that, and how do you start approaching that with clients that you find in these various categories? How do you go about trying to get them to figure out what they want out of their life?
Well, I mean, it's just conversations, and you don't necessarily get the answer, in one or two meetings.
Yeah.
Like, it might, for example, if someone's working a job they hate and they're nowhere near being able to afford to retire, sometimes the thought doesn't even enter their mind to like make a major change, right? Quit the job, find a new job, move cities, whatever. Sometimes they're stretched too thin with a massive mortgage. Well, they could just downsize, right? Like, move to a cheaper home and then free up that pressure of having to earn as much money as you can. So sometimes it's just planting the seed in their mind that like, you have some choice here. Like, if you're unhappy, do something about it. And sometimes they just need that nudge to make a difficult decision. Yeah, so it's just open conversations. As you know, one thing we do in meetings is ask clients to think of it, like, move 3 years into the future and then reflect on the 3 years and what would have happened through that period of time for you to be pleased with it. And just by going through a simple exercise like that, sometimes you uncover that they want to make a change. Yeah, so it's asking that 3-year question. So a couple of simple exercises like that. And the other thing that often happens is, especially with a couple, is they're not necessarily communicating that to each other. And so if you get them in the same room and ask those sorts of questions, then they start, then now they've got the support of their partner as well, realizing, my partner actually isn't that happy in the work they do or whatever. And they come up with a plan to make some changes from there. Yeah,
because it's big calls, like a lot of big calls need to be made at that point in time. Like, the big ones I always look at with clients, is around this whole question is like, where are you living? Grandkids, kids, like that's the thing. It gets pretty, like, it's not super straightforward when it's not just about thinking about what do I want to be doing in my life. Like that could be quite easy when you break it down. But then it's also the other factors you've got to consider of, people I see, it's like, hubby wants to go up north to Queensland because there's family up there. Wife wants to stay down where the grandkids are. There's a sick elderly parent here as well that then like is governing how they sort of manage their life. So it really is tricky, but I think it's, you do need to start sort of thinking it through, and you don't want to get to the point of where it's like time to retire and then you're crossing all those bridges and figuring it all out. Because sometimes you might need to, maneuver assets in advance, depending on how these all things look and feel. But it's not an easy one. But if we talk about that blender being apparently the place to be, how do we get to that point of being the blender? What do you reckon?
That is tough. I mean, especially for some people who end up in a high pressure corporate type role or running a business, small or medium sized business. Sometimes they feel like they don't have time and energy to put into hobbies or other things. So it takes work, right?
Yeah.
And you need to put that work in now, not I'll wait until I'm retired, then I'll have time. So then all of a sudden you get up on Monday morning and you've got the whole week ahead of you. So you need to put that time in. We spoke about hobbies, but it's also personal relationships. Again, it all requires work, like maintaining friendships and relationships with relatives and with your kids and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and you don't want to be idle as well, because like time can flick by like that as well. You might think it's you get to retirement and you'll try and figure it out, but like time can move quick. And I know, for one, talking for myself, if I'm not busy, I think if I wasn't busy for long enough, I could probably get into some stupid things. So like, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing, you got to have that sort of purpose and meaning in your life. But it doesn't, that could be, I think the ones I see do it well is they keep some sort of attachment to work or something related. And for like the average person, that might be, they go from working 5 days to 2 or 3 initially, and they sort of taper off like that. But then I have a lot of clients that end up doing maybe just 1 day a week because they really just enjoy like the social aspect of being amongst their workplace. And the Centrelink or I suppose the government and age pension, there are some rules around how that works, like with the work bonus, whereby you can basically work and earn a certain amount of money every fortnight, and a part of it, on the assumption you can get an age pension in the first place and you don't have too much assets or income, you can earn a portion and it doesn't actually affect your age pension in any way. So I guess we do bash the system quite a lot sometimes on the podcast, but there are some elements of the system which are quite okay, I suppose, which do encourage people in this sort of a fashion, as opposed to just like a clean cutoff. Like there is the ability to work and earn a bit of money. So I think that's what I sort of say for most clients is like, think about that, easing into retirement rather than just like a cold hard stop. You sort of ease your way in, or you're lined up and you kind of know what you're going to do and what you're going to spend your time on, whether it be grandkids are coming along. There's a passion project. I have some clients that go sit on boards and things. So they get out of all their paid work and then they go sit on some boards and get paid 25, 30 grand a year to show up a couple of times a year. And, they kind of get their fix from, getting out of like a high paying career or their business through some of that and helping, other generations come up behind them. I don't know, when I think about my life way down the track, like that's probably where I feel like I'll find my meaning and purpose is helping other, young people get after it and figure out what they want to do in their life and, achieve success. And that's to me where I think I'll find that meaning, as opposed to just like accumulating wealth for the sake of just absolutely accumulating wealth. But yeah, there's clearly no right way, one size fits all for it.
And I would say if you're in I'll come back to the young kids thing, because that's one of the hardest parts, I'm living it now. In terms of how we help clients that are in that phase, like say you're in your 40s, young kids, you feel like you don't have time for your own hobbies, or your kids' hobbies, which is okay to do for a period of time. I mean, getting the finances right mean that when the kids do grow up, you then have, if you're in a strong financial position or a relatively strong one, you then have some more freedom around your choices. Like you're not stuck grinding away just to pay the bills. So that's where the planning and stuff comes into it, I think.
Yeah. And look, sometimes talking about that is, again, talking from a first-hand experience of what I've seen, I reckon the kids in that dynamic where they start leaving home is also a pretty tricky one to navigate, because that can put stresses on, relationships as well that I've seen. And again, some of that can coincide with these retirement conversations. Like a couple of the kids have moved out, one's still hanging around, and the youngest one's still there, but might transition off. And then, I've seen some people where it's kids are gone and then it's just them, and they're like, well, this is not great.
I never find out you don't like the other person.
Yeah, or either way.
You used to.
Well, I've seen divorces. Seen divorces happen. So it's like, I think all of it, it's like it's a part of this conversation of, you kind of go through those stages, and you don't want to think about what life is like when it's right there in front of you. I think the theme is really having those conversations ultimately before we get there. But what about, early retirement can backfire, and there's, the FIRE movement. We've spoken about the FIRE movement before. And I think the struggle for me around getting around that whole FIRE movement is like boredom. Where's your satisfaction going to come from? I don't know, to me, it doesn't seem to work. I think it sort of ties into this whole conversation. Like if you're in your 30s and you're doing FIRE, I don't know. It's never seemed to resonate for me. What do you reckon?
No, I agree. It doesn't make the pure FIRE movement doesn't make sense. Like, you're going to retire at 35 years old. Okay, then what? What do you do
for 50 plus years?
Yeah, and all your mates are working, all your relatives in your age bracket are all working full time. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And that's why every time I do see stuff about FIRE now, there's all these variations. Have you seen that? There's like,
what's the latest?
I can't remember the terminology, but it's sort of like, there's partial FIREs, like you're still spending money and you're still working a bit and stuff like. There's all these variations, and I think it's because the pure FIRE thing isn't actually
it's just miserable.
It's not a very good strategy.
Yeah.
And usually people who achieve FIRE, they've actually had a really high income early in life. So it's like, well, that's fine. You don't have to retire just because you've achieved that. You can just go do some other work that doesn't pay, that's not so high income that you enjoy more. You don't have to just stop altogether and do nothing.
Yeah. I think a lot about that whole fulfillment in the journey, not the destination thing of, I always think about it's like climbing that mountain. Like I look at when I finished my university degree originally, I was like, oh God, when I finish this degree, it's going to be like the best thing ever. And then I finished it, and I reckon the day after I was like, now what? You know what I mean? Like it felt like it. And that's something I think, I do think a lot about is, I've seen some people in business that have like exited out of businesses, and then say you have gotten more money than you could imagine, and be like, I'd be happy if I had that. But then they found themselves thinking that they thought they knew what they wanted to do post-business exited, did what they thought they wanted to do, and then quickly found out that what they actually really like doing is being back involved in the business, and ended up going back into the business because they just couldn't find that fulfillment and figured out, not the hard way because they've got loads of money, but they figured out that it's not necessarily always, about that as well. So I guess some part of it is also just learning by doing. But one thing I'm trying to do in my own life is just see what other people are doing and go, not sort of fall for the same trap, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And see other people that have gone like to the other side or done certain things, and then like, oh yeah, well, this is how I felt, and it wasn't kind of what I thought it was going to be. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
We should probably also acknowledge, like, there's the curveballs that come out of nowhere, like divorce is one, massive, that completely throws all your plans off track.
Yeah.
And then there's health events.
Yeah.
Too. So it doesn't matter how much you plan it out. Something bad can happen with your health, and everything's changed. And probably the other one is just not having work, like losing your job and struggling to find new work. So there's a degree of needing to be flexible as well in that.
Yeah, well, I think it talks to like building up your financial fortress in a way, because if you've got some good assets behind you and a good base of assets, whether that be through superannuation or properties or investment portfolios, I guess when those curveballs happen, or naturally they will happen. Well, and the one I see a lot of clients go through as well is actually say you get into retirement, enjoying your life, you're a blender, you're fulfilled, you're doing your part-time work, or you found whatever fulfillment looks like. Elderly parent has to go into care. Life turns on its head. They may not even have the resources to be able to do it, and I'm having to see then some clients have to step in. So like there are these other elements that you do need to put thought around. And a lot of clients that I'm work with in their 50s and 60s, it's definitely a conversation I always want to have and go, okay, well, Not just because there could be a future inheritance, but that's another curveball.
Yeah, 100%.
So if you've got that financial fortress, you can definitely navigate your way around it. So I think like key theme around designing a retirement life, not necessarily just a retirement number, which I think is what I reckon our industry probably does wrong in a way, is it focuses too much on the numbers of, hey, Billy, $100,000 in retirement, or, you know, the ask for retirement standard says that a couple needs a comfortable 80 or so grand to live a decent lifestyle. Like, I think some of that is definitely good, but I think that the key part that there is missing is that like lifestyle design, which I think we as a financial planning industry can definitely get better at as a whole. I know that's obviously a big focus for us at Link, but you know, it's not just about picking your number, because I think that's just like surface. And then it's like that old the old iceberg, analogy or photo where you see the peak of the iceberg, but then beneath that there's just so many other factors of where you sort of get your value, your passion, and so on and so forth. What do you think around that?
Well, I often have debates. I was going to say I fight my colleagues, but I have like debates with them sometimes, and clients around retirement projections. I'm mostly talking about younger retirees, where it's like, oh, we'll just project everything out. We're going to spend exactly this much. Money's going to last exactly this long. Like, but the variables that are in there, like interest rates, what the stock market does, what inflation does, the curveballs, like a health event or something, or an inheritance comes in, or like there's so many variables that doing a 20-year projection, it's just not going to play out like that.
Yeah.
It's just not. So I'm still happy to do the projection. I'm, massive disclaimers every time. We don't know what all these variables are going to do. So this needs to be flexible. We need to have a chat at least every year. And so where are we at? What's happening? How much do we spend? How's the market going?
Yeah.
Is anything else changed? Are you happy where you live? How are your relatives going? Like, it's a moving. The plans are they have to be reviewed every year, and they have to be flexible. Yeah.
And someone might go into retirement thinking that they've figured out what they want, and then they do it for a year and they're like, this sucks. And then they want to totally change and pivot. And it sort of talks to a lot of the relationship and work that we do with our clients. And I think talking to those projections and numbers is a good, interesting one. Like, I very much try to always see what the clients think that they want and need, but then I try to go above that to sort of stress test the position a bit and go, okay, you think you need $100? I was doing this with a family member recently, and they're like, we live off 50. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you're going to need more than 50 grand. You've got the means to be able to do it. And sometimes part of what we need to do is actually tell and make people understand that they have the means to live above that. But I'm like, look, let's at least look at 70, 80, 90. Not saying you will spend that every single year, but let's stress test your asset base for the reasons that you said, because there's a lot of factors that we can't sometimes account for. And so a way I try to balance that out is go, okay, well, this is what you said you think you need. Let's still look at that. Okay, you can quite easily live off 50 grand for the rest of your life. That's basically the age pension anyway. Yeah. But let's push that up 80, 100. We're working with some clients, now that need $250,000, $500,000 a year, which is very different. But let's stress test that so that these curveballs that we're talking about, when they come up, you can sail through.
Yeah, and a lot of people massively undercook those projections, especially on ASFA.
Yeah.
And particularly since 2020, COVID, whatever, and the bout of inflation we've had now, the cost of owning a property, the cost of travel, like a lot of people want to do a lot of travel. Kids need help, grandkids need help.
Yeah.
You add it all up, that ASFA assumption of how much a retiree spends is often way under what people actually want to spend.
Yeah.
And the age pension's nowhere near enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's different for, like, the client I saw this morning, she's in her 80s. Yeah, she spends nothing. Like, she's in a retirement village. She walks to the supermarket and back, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But that's rare, and especially for people in younger generations. They're accustomed to nice travel, all the streaming services, eating out, Uber Eats, all that stuff. That's why I think projections it's a bit dangerous if you're going to full retirement thinking that, yep, we need 65 grand a year and that's it.
Yeah. Well, I had a note actually here we haven't touched on around AI, involuntary retirement, What are your thoughts?
One?
What are your thoughts around that?
I've listened to a lot of podcasts and people talking about AI, so I don't feel like I'm qualified to.
I don't think anyone is.
Yeah, there's all these wild predictions. We don't know how it's going to play out, but it just means increasingly in your career you want maximum flexibility. Like you need to be ready to move because I don't know how it's going to play out. There will be job losses, but there may be a whole bunch of new jobs and careers that open up along the way. So you need to be flexible and you need to be prepared to learn new skills or be better at building your network so you've got people to talk to. Because if you're really stuck, you've been doing the same thing for 20 years or something and that's all you know how to do, and you might find yourself out of a job and struggling to find a new one. Yeah, that's the reality.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely in the more optimistic basket on that side of things. Like I try to think about the positives that can come from it, but no doubt there's definitely some negatives associated with it. But I try to think of a lot of people will be elevated in what they do and can do more. And for us in our industry and what we do, I think it's just going to mean we can serve more clients. A lot of the tasks that should already have been streamlined and automated can actually going to be very quickly going to be able to be done. But in terms of just means we're going to be able to provide more value to more people or better serve our existing clients.
I think I'm concerned about like cohort of people out there who aren't, who are just saying AI is bullshit and I'll be fine because I'm really good at this. I've been doing it for ages. Like if you have a bit of a closed mind about what it's going to look like and the work that you do, that's where you might run into trouble.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know if we're talking about it on the last podcast, I was talking about it with someone else around, I sort of speak to some geniuses every now and then around this stuff that know a hell of a lot more than me. And, everyone talks about like coders, like are dead because of, Claude and all of these things. But someone I was chatting with recently was like really giving me some insight into that. It's like, sure, anyone can like do coding and things themselves now, but you also still need to understand like what you're making. And like you could be, code up a website or whatever it may be in like, an hour, but is that like legitimately going to be something you could use and scale out and not just break within a month or something? So like you look at like coders, which is probably the most common example. Everyone who's like AI has just taken over that. But this person I was talking to was saying that like, coders like still have a role there because like they actually understand and interpret all of what's then going on and can understand what the AI is actually spitting out. So I was like, I get that to a degree, but. Yeah, naturally, I think it's like one of those things in life. Like you always see those examples of farmers back in the day were scared of like tractors and tools coming in, but then their role changed, and that's just I think.
Did you listen to? I was listening to your mate Alex Hormozy this morning. Did you listen to?
What was his on?
He just did 20 minutes on AI.
Right. What was the take?
Well, I think he had a pretty good take on it. He basically said like you just need to use the tools. You just can't ignore the tools.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah.
We'll still need humans, but like humans plus AI is more powerful than humans without AI. And it goes back to what you just said, like any of the technologies in the past, it just made people work more efficiently and smarter and so on. So you just need to use the tools.
Did we talk about the pilot analogy on our last podcast? Or like I keep forgetting if I've spoken about it. But it was the one of someone was telling me about, because we'll wrap it up in a moment, but like you think about getting on a plane, planes have been able to like drive on autopilot for quite some time. I don't think anyone still wants to get on a plane knowing if it was just drive itself on autopilot and there's no humans behind it whatsoever. So I guess like the thought of learning from that would be is like there are going to be a lot of tasks, but like even us in advice, my view is that is people are still going to want to know that there's a human element behind decisions that are being made or can check off. Because if there's a malfunction and you're up in the sky and there's no one there to fix it or whatever it may be, I don't know if people would be wanting to fly in the same way that they do or get maybe advice in the same way that they do if they knew there was like no human attached to it whatsoever. Maybe I could be wrong, but that's... so it's just not ignoring this technology, no matter what you do, pretty much. Yep. No, totally agree, mate. And I guess like in terms of closing, retirement isn't the end of work. It's the freedom to choose meaningful work, I guess is the part that I want to really finish on, because it's not about hitting that point and just kick the feet up and do nothing. I think for a small segment of society, that probably does work. But I think for a lot of people that, want to build something and create a financial fortress around themselves, that generally means, they're a bit of a go-getter. They get out there and have a crack and got a bit of energy. So, I think there is a lot to be said in trying to figure out what you want post work, business, exit, whatever it may look like. But any closing remarks, Bill?
No, well said, Josh.
Cool. Well, we're going to wrap it up there, guys. Hope you are getting value out of it. Leave us a review, 5 stars, Spotify and Apple, and we'll catch you next time on the Winners Playbook.
Disclaimer. The information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into account your personal circumstances. Please head to the show notes if you wish to book in a free 15-minute call to discuss your personal situation.